This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire.
Whoa, that's good.
This might be the drink of the summer.
Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it, okay?
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
I can't stop scratching my downtown. Yeah, but I'm not itching to go downtown and tell a receptionist I'm here to talk about my downtown. Some things you'd rather type than say out loud.
There's no question too embarrassing for Amazon Health AI. Chat your symptoms and get virtual care 24/7. Healthcare just got less painful.
Hi, I'm Jamie, host of Murderish, the podcast. On Murderish, I give you a 3D look at gripping murder cases. Just the facts, no banter. By the end of each episode, you'll know who was involved, details of the crime, and what went down at trial. Also featured on Murderish is my own personal story about the time a man followed me home at night and I found him in my bedroom. Listening to this podcast doesn't make you a murderer. It just means you're murder-ish. Listen to Murderish on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Unscripted. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Paige.
This week, we're talking about none other than Diana, Princess of Wales.
Lady Di.
Lady Di. And I think a lot of other people of our generation, women of a certain age, looked up to, even though I was pretty young when she passed. She really turned the system, or the agency, or whatever it's called, of the royal family's called. She really turned it on its head. She was a force to be reckoned with, and she really was just a young woman that was placed in this system and brought humanity to it.
That's exactly what it was. It was the humanity of it all. She was, as explained in this documentary that her sons, William and Harry, so thoughtfully put together about her. It's called Diana, Our Mother, Her Legacy, something to that effect. And they talk about that. They talk about how she was, I don't know if they use the word informal, but she was just, she was on the floor playing with her kids. She did sometimes sneak away and drive around with them. And they have like the best memories of her. And something that was so profound that one of the boys said was that, because this is from 2017. So they talk about.
So they were still getting along, by the way. We're talking the boys, Prince Harry and Prince William.
There's always rumored squabbles, and you could read Harry's
memoir.
Yes, he does have some things to say, but I don't think anything too negatively. It's all very polished a bit still.
But it is not a secret that they're not on the best of terms currently.
Right, exactly. And, all that to say, so this is from 2017, and one of the boys says, like something to the effect of, so 20 years on, I can still feel that love, basically referring to the love that she gave them. Like they still feel loved by her. And they then go on to attribute that to her and the way that they loved her. And that's sort of one of the ending moments, if not the ending moment, of the documentary. And it's just so profound. I think that just goes to show that while she had this metaphorical, very fancy plate that was full, she still put being a mom as a very high priority for herself, for her family, and everyone around her seemed to really respect that.
Yeah, I would say her experience in motherhood was her true rebellion, because when you mention that one of the boys is quoted as saying they can still feel her love 20 years on, even though she hasn't been around in that long after she tragically passed.
And it's almost 30 years now. I cannot believe it.
It's wild how fast time goes, but her ability to get down on the floor and show that physical affection with her sons was unheard of in the monarchy. That is not the way things were done. And the fact that she chose to do away with the way things were done to show her children how much she loved them so that they knew
Mhm.
was a rebellion in itself. And I think that's partly what made the world fall in love with her, is that she really humanized the monarchy for them. They were able to see a mom with her kids, a mom who loved being a mom who loved her children. And that's not something that we got until her.
It's so funny that you say that, because my reaction, I mean, I guess I'll say the end of the documentary, but probably kind of throughout was, oh, well, they are just people after all. I guess they do stuff like that. And it's like, no, you're right. Like, this was Diana breaking that mold and kind of recreating it into this modern 80s, 90s role. She married who's now King Charles in 1981. I think she had just turned 20 when they got married. So, I mean, very young.
Yeah, like 19 when they initially met. They only met like 13 times before they got married. And he was 32. So he had the years on her. He had the experience on her. And then he was also emotionally tangled up in another relationship with none other than Camilla, who he eventually married as his second wife.
I find this, because I was thinking about all this too, so interesting, because like right now I'm reading a book called By Any Other Name. It's from 2024 by Jodi Picoult. It deals a lot with this modern woman in 2024 and an ancestor of hers in the late 1500s. It's very much dealing with like aristocracy of like England and that sort of realm, again, in the late 1500s. And you kind of think of those stories, you know, like the thing where the king is, or the queen is married out of duty and finds love elsewhere. And it was very common, especially back then. But I guess even in the 80s, just 40 some years ago, they still weren't escaping that. And while I think that there was some form of respect, and they did, you know, have a marriage that lasted around 15 or so years, they still didn't escape that. Because as we know, growing up, Lady Di was from an aristocratic family, the Spencers. They're very well known within the aristocracy for multiple generations.
Right. She wasn't an outsider. And so she understood how things would play out. But I think when you are 19, 20 years old and you are going into this as innocent as she was, because that's the best way to describe her. You look at her, she looks like a literal child. She looks so young in her wedding gown, which, by the way, the train, I think it was like 25 feet long. That was the talk when they got married. I mean, obviously, we didn't watch that live because we weren't alive.
We weren't here yet.
No, but about 1 billion people around the world did watch and tune in for that wedding. And you could just see how he looked like a man, a 36-year-old man who had already experienced love. He was in love with someone else. He wore cufflinks that Camilla gifted him to his wedding with Princess Diana. And it just shows like he never had both feet into this marriage. But it was about optics. It was about, all right, what can Princess Diana bring that somebody like Camilla can't? Well, she can bring heirs. She can bring the family lineage. Like you mentioned, she was a part of the aristocracy. The Spencer family is very much a part of UK history. In fact,
there's a movie even about one of her ancestors, Georgiana. I forget who plays her, but it's somebody huge. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to watch this. Once I saw, I think it's called Royalty Now Studios. They do like art, and they do where they like update what somebody, say like a King Henry VIII might look like in person back when they were alive. And then they update it to today quite frequently. So they did that for one of Princess Diana's ancestors, who was a Spencer. So very interesting.
And something else about her ancestry, and just like to tie into that, is Princess Diana's family had more British royal blood in them. She's more British than Prince Charles because his family was more German. and more related to the recent European dynasties compared to strictly British. And so a lot of people say up until Princess Diana, the British royal family was predominantly German. And then she kind of infused the new lineage with more British blood. And then when Kate Middleton, Catherine, Princess of Wales, oh my gosh, it's a mouthful, came around, she also is very much of English blood. And she also helped infuse the next generation with even more English blood. So it was very thought out of why she was being chosen as Prince Charles, now King Charles's first wife.
Their line has been quite long lasting for quite a while now, because as we know, the line started deviating because Queen Elizabeth didn't have any children of her own to be as heirs. And like, I don't get that deep into the royal family, so I'm sure there's just like a lot more into it.
Which Queen Elizabeth? The first?
Yes, Queen Elizabeth I, who was King Henry VIII's daughter, did not have any children of her own. And I think that was by design, to be completely honest. I mean, there may or may not have been fertility things, but she didn't even marry. So this did change what was the Tudor line, which had come from actually one of my ancestors, not in a very pretty way at all, who was King Henry VII, who was King Henry VIII's dad. But I am not directly related to King Henry VIII. I'm related to one of his sisters. But anyway, so all that to say, these lines can change just whether it's politically or whether it is physically because of, whatever the situation with the heirs are. So,
and we saw that even with the way that Queen Elizabeth II became queen was the fact that her uncle stepped down to get married to this woman who was an American divorcee, which, I mean, that story is well known, so we don't need to get into it. But her father eventually becomes king, which is loosely documented in the film The King's Speech, if you guys remember that. And then she, as a woman, becomes queen, and then eventually has Prince Charles, who gets married to Princess Diana. I think the reason I brought that up is because you had mentioned how things can quickly change with the lineage.
Oh, yes. It's actually more delicate than you think.
Yeah, it's, very delicate. All that to say is, yes, Princess Diana, Lady Diana, was of British nobility. And she actually became a lady at the age of 13 that he inherited from his father when his father passed away. That's basically how you inherit things, titles in the UK.
It's still so strange to me because when I think of those things, you think of it as centuries ago, but it's still like that. This is modern times. Again, she was a modern, lady and then a modern princess. It's so weird. Oh yeah, hey, my dad's an earl. Meanwhile, I'm on ancestry.com, doing family trees, finding earls. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so old school. It's no, it's not. It's actually
it's a big deal. Yeah.
And she made her way into it. So all this to say about what we were saying moments ago with her kind of looking still very young when marrying this man, because she was 19 and he was in his 30s. I think he was born in 48 or 49 and she was born in 61. So yeah, there's quite the age gap there. And she looks, I don't want to say scared because that's not the right word, timid and kind of young. Quiet, a little shy, young, sort of being oh, all eyes are on me while I'm getting married. She honestly didn't look that comfortable with it.
No, she didn't. And what I have heard, because I have been interested in the royals for a long time, but I do remember seeing or reading or something that she actually grew up in contact with the royal family, but because of her age, she was often in circles with Prince Edward, King Charles's youngest brother. And so a lot of people always thought, oh, they would have been a great pairing. But because of her lineage, because what she could offer to the royal family, she was chosen for Prince Charles. And then obviously Edward ended up marrying Sophie, which they seem like a really great pairing anyway.
Yeah, they've been married for a long time. No, it's also interesting. I see how people get into the royals. I've never not been into them, but I can't say I've been into them. Does that make sense? Like, it's something on the periphery for me of interest. Like when Princess Catherine was going through her cancer treatments and she was away from the public eye for privacy for a little bit. And everybody was like, what's going on with her? Where is she? The Crown hadn't released any like official statements or anything like that. People were kind of freaking out. And I remember we did a video about it because you and I were like, what is going on? I mean, we assumed it wasn't nefarious, but we were like, something is going on here. But, you know, some of the comments told us to mind our own beeswax. And at the same time, though, like there's the Crown office. Like this is a political family at the end of the day of another country. And it was interesting wondering what was going on and hoping that she was okay. And to be honest, she kind of wasn't okay. She had cancer. But I think Diana would have been proud to have Princess Catherine as the future queen and her daughter-in-law. I really, really do.
Now, obviously, Princess Diana passed away in 1997, so her sons were both very young. It is interesting to say or assume what she would feel towards her daughter-in-laws because she never actually had the opportunity to meet them or her grandchildren or even know her sons as adults. So it is curious to wonder what she would feel about Catherine and Meghan, but it's hard to say. I feel like she was just a likable person and would give both women the benefit of the doubt, even if, you know, social media says that she would like one over the other. I feel like she probably would have liked both.
I feel like Queen Elizabeth II sort of took on that mother-in-law role, but also she was, you know, when alive was leading the country and probably still would have had a lot to say regardless whether Diana was around or not. But I feel like Diana could have fulfilled a bit of that more guidance role. But again, I think that Elizabeth II sort of had to kind of step into that role of kind of guiding them within the family, so to speak, as a matriarch. And we'll also say, you are right, the boys were very young when she passed. They were 13 and 15. A great quote from William, because you mentioned how, right, she didn't get to meet the daughter-in-laws. She didn't get to meet her grandchildren. At the time of the documentary, Prince George and Princess Charlotte are both born babies. And he mentions what he knows. And I love to say that. He knows what kind of grandmother she would have been. He says, just with absolute confidence about, you know, remembering who his mother was. Oh, she would have been the worst grandma ever for us because she probably would have come at a horrible time, probably bath time. She would come, she would play, she'd get bubbles everywhere and then leave us to clean it up, basically, is what he was alluding to. And I think that is really sweet. He's just saying that she would have been that kind of grandma that sort of spoiled the kids and then gave them back to the parents when they're a bit cranky from all the sugar and being overtired. And we know those grandparents, and they are some of the best. So he's just picturing her like that and how much she would have loved being a grandmother.
She would have embraced the role.
She would have embraced it to a T. And when you look at some of the archival documentaries that are out there, there's some really great ones. And where it's basically, again, just more archival, showing the clips, not a lot of interviews and things like that. You can see the humanity in her, but it's still the polished version, right? She's working. This is her job, right? And I think that makes it all the more interesting and fun to hear about kind of what she was like behind the closed doors a little bit, when cameras weren't on, when the world wasn't watching as much, which, by the way, that was like few and far between for them as a royal family. So again, very interesting to hear these little tidbits in that documentary by Harry and William.
I don't know the exact grade that she taught, but I heard that it was around like kindergarten that she was a school teacher for prior to getting married to Prince Charles. And I think that perfectly captures what you're saying, like her love for children, but her children especially. And I think you see a little bit of that nurturing personality in her chosen role as well, her chosen job.
Yeah, I think that she, while may have been or preferred introversion a bit more, she still had that side to her. I mean, all that really means is that you're processing some big things inwardly. And I think that has a lot to do with some of the struggles she faced with eating disorders and things like that she sort of took on all on her own, despite having, a lot of people and a lot of resources in her life. I remember reading a biography about her, and it got quite deep into some of those things, but I was so young because, like you said, even young people were very into her because we didn't have any other princesses at the time. I mean, especially because she had 2 boys. So there was no princesses. She was our princess. That was her.
I think I know which book or like the unofficial biography that you're talking about, because it was pretty big in the 90s.
Which is when I read it. I was probably like 10.
Like too young to be reading this.
Probably. Or understand everything.
I do know that it documented her struggle, like you said, with an eating disorder. I think specifically bulimia for her. And she also experienced postpartum depression, which eventually led to, I don't know if there were attempts on her life, but at least thoughts of ending her life as well. And so things got pretty dark for her. And she didn't have very many people to help her.
Well, she actually, after announcing her first pregnancy with William in January of 1982. Well, they announced it in November of 81, but then in January of 82, she was 12 weeks along and she fell down a staircase. She suffered some bruising, and I think people were just wondering, what was going on. And she unfortunately had intentionally thrown herself down the staircase at Sandringham. I hope I'm not butchering the name of whatever, like palace or whatever that is, but I know that the book talked about that too. Like,
what's that, bud? The Lincoln Summer Sales event is on now with exclusive offers? Oh, so you want to feel the wind pouring through the available open panoramic vista roof on a road trip? And spend the afternoon beachside hanging out on the back of the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Okay, I'll schedule a Lincoln test drive today, right before your vet appointment. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Yeah, so she did throw herself down and she felt inadequate. And that is so sad because she was more than adequate. I hope that, in spirit, she could hear all of the wonderful things that her boys had to say about her in this documentary, because she was so much more than adequate, it sounds like.
I mean, even if she were to have seen the outpouring of love when she passed away, not to keep jumping in the timeline, but it was clear that the world fell in love with her.
Yeah.
As we got to know her, more and more people fell in love with her. Her boys obviously adored her. Perhaps the only person that didn't really like her was her husband. And she did give that interview, which with that quote that's pretty famous towards the end of their marriage. I don't know if they were officially divorced at the time or in the process, but she does acknowledge that there were 3 people in her marriage, her, Charles, and Camilla. And 3's a crowd. Even though she was later revealed to have had her own dalliances, like she did have extramarital affairs, they didn't start until after King Charles, or Prince Charles at the time, had made it very clear that she just wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, in 1986, she started a relationship with their former writing instructor for the family. And at that point, they would have been married for like 4 or 5 years, but yet they didn't even get divorced for another 10. So all that to say, it's kind of like, yeah, they were just sort of like doing their own thing after the cracks in the marriage showed, and
they were living their own lives. And, there is speculation about her relationship with that writing instructor, James Hewitt. He was notoriously a redhead, and one of her sons, Prince Harry, is also a redhead. And so there was speculation for a while that perhaps Harry was this James Hewitt's son. Obviously, he isn't. I mean, he's balding in the same male pattern baldness that his father and brother are. So, like, we know he is Mountbatten But yeah, there was speculation. And I feel like that's so hurtful because nobody really came after Charles the way that they went after Diana this way.
Nobody. And now, guess who's, the queen? I almost called her future, but there was coronation. I think Elizabeth II passed in like 2022, September, something like that, years ago now. So there was coronation. It was a big deal. Like, he's the king. She's the queen, isn't she? She's queen consort or something they call it.
Yeah. So I believe that she is not allowed to be addressed in a certain fashion. She can't just be Queen Camilla. It has to be queen consort because there is a distinction between being of royal blood and being married into the family. But Camilla, for whatever reason, her and Charles just were like magnets and they were drawn to one another. And I've seen these, I don't want to call them like thirst traps, but like these videos online of people romanticizing this relationship between Camilla and Charles where, they were unrequited lovers. They wanted to be together, but couldn't. They couldn't get married because I believe Camilla was dating someone else. She ended up getting married to someone else. He got married to Princess Diana, but they somehow always found their way back to each other. And that's not to say he didn't have other lovers. I think that's something that's like misrepresented in the media nowadays.
No, I think he and Camilla had fights about the other lovers. I'm pretty sure. It's like, who's the main relationship here? King Charles III? Like, what's going on? I do want to also, just because I had mentioned dates, yes, she became queen consort September 8th, 2022, which is the death date of Elizabeth II. But back to you. You have the floor, Natalie.
Well, thank you. But yeah, like you mentioned, they did have arguments about these other women that were involved romantically or sexually, at least, with Prince Charles at the time. And so I think that whatever PR machine that they have with the crown has done its job because that's largely forgotten nowadays. They see Prince Charles and Camilla, and it's this story that's really been polished over time to show, these are these unrequited lovers. These are two people that couldn't be together and now are finally together. Well, actually, it was a lot messier than that.
Yeah. And at the expense of another wonderful woman's like mental health and life and time and all of those things that you can't really get back. And who, by the way, is no longer with us since August of 97.
And, I feel like Diana's presence, her ghost, I guess is a way to put it, is something that Camilla will never be able to outrun.
That's right. And we're not even speaking rudely about Camilla.
No.
I mean, she's an older woman. She's 78 years old. We've got nothing to say, but it is true. She's not going to live up the same way.
No, Charles chose her. It is what it is. They chose each other. They deserve each other. But there's no way that she will ever, in the world's mind, replace what Diana was. She'll never replace the role that Diana was for her children or even in the family. She brought some carefreeness to the royal family that they hadn't experienced before. And so, yeah, she left a ghost. Diana left a ghost in her place. And, I think that's probably why we don't really hear a lot from Camilla. She sort of keeps to herself. And I don't know if that's because it's necessarily her personality or if it's by design.
I mean, we talk about her like she's still alive. I mean, I just sent you a picture of her in the Harvard mock neck with the bike shorts. It's a pretty iconic photo. Maybe we'll have to post that up on the Instagram.
I think even Hailey Bieber did a photo shoot, like configuring these outfits of hers that she was really well known for once she had the divorce. Because this is like her post-divorce look.
Especially with 90s nostalgia coming back. Not only nostalgia for her as a leader in the 90s and a big presence in the 90s, but also just like the iconic fashion. I mean, come on. I mean, again, the mock necks are huge right now as opposed to crew neck, although I don't love a mock neck. But I mean, the outfit is iconic. Like, I want to remake that. Like, that's why, like, I sent that to you. Like, it's so iconic and
it's doable.
It's doable.
Achievable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is also so, I'm trying to find a better word than interesting or fitting because that just seems wrong and weird. But as we know, she passed. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but that's all that they are, is a theory of a conspiracy. But the overt visual of her passing, which was horrific, was that they were fleeing paparazzi in Paris, and it was late. She got to the hospital around 2 a.m., and she was pronounced dead 2 hours later. I mean, they were trying to revive her. I remember my friend growing up was super obsessed with her, and she was telling me that they hand pumped her heart. Now, I don't know how true or not this is, so please, if you know anybody, let us know in the comments on Spotify or YouTube. But that was what we were told, was like that they like hand pumped her heart like longer than you ever, I guess, normally would, at least in 1997, to try to just, save her life and not accept the fact that she had passed.
Yeah, I don't know if I have heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me because it was such a tragic time. And I want to give a little bit more details about that moment, just because I feel like for those listening that may be a little bit younger, they don't know all the facts. And so it happened August 31st, 1997 in Paris. She was fleeing from the paparazzi. In her car was the driver, who we would later learn was under the influence of alcohol, but also prescription drugs. And she had her lover, what was his name? Dodi.
Dodi Fayed.
Yes. And they had just been photographed on a yacht. They were together for a while and were very clearly in love. But when this crash happened, it was about 2 a.m. She was fleeing the paparazzi. She was trying, I guess, like to go back to her hotel, going through a tunnel. And because the driver's under the influence, he's being chased, he crashed. And she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. And after the crash happened, obviously she was injured because of the accident, but she also wasn't wearing her seatbelt. And so her injuries were catastrophic. And so she eventually passed. Dodi passed, but the driver survived. And they let her lay there. The paparazzi didn't get involved after the crash happened. And there's photographs of the wreckage with an injured Princess Diana and Dodi inside.
I think they crashed in a tunnel. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we were pretty young when this happened, but we remember, so a lot of this stuff was coming back to me as we talk about her. Yeah, it was like a tunnel. And again, like I said, it's almost this kind of eerie fittedness that they were fleeing paparazzi that caused this. Because again, it was this dichotomy of like, I don't know how much Diana loved being famous or in the public eye as much as she loved actually just doing the good works that she did, like in Bosnia and with AIDS and all of the things.
I do want to back up a little bit. I misspoke. So there were 4 people in the car. It was the driver, it was Diana, Dodi, and then a bodyguard. The bodyguard is the one who survived. The driver did pass. So I just didn't want to misrepresent it. Such a well-known moment in the pop,
right?
Like in the world.
I believe it though, because so often when somebody is under the influence and causes a crash, they often do survive over other victims within the crash. So I was like, oh, they probably did survive. But so that is quite a piece of information there.
There's like so many things I like want to touch on. Like I want to touch on the funeral, but I also want to touch on the fact that you mentioned there were conspiracy theories about this being more of a hit than a tragic accidental death. And that comes from Dodi's father, who had said he believed that they were targeted because it was thought that Diana was pregnant with Dodi's child, about like a couple of weeks pregnant. And there was commentary that Prince Charles didn't want his children to have a half brother who was of a certain religion. And so eventually it was investigated and it was proven these rumors were false, but it was a big thing in the magazines at the time.
I mean, it's certainly worth, some independent investigative journalism trying to figure some things out, somebody died, and hits should.
A couple people died. Yeah.
A hit would be murder. So as you know, we cover murder every week, or missing and murdered cases every week. So we would absolutely agree with like, hey, yeah, maybe we should take a look at that. But conspiracy theories also can be harmful to, the actual information getting out there. So I'm glad that it was kind of like wrapped up that like, okay, it's not true.
It was wrapped up, and one way that they were able to showcase that this couldn't be true was the fact that she did have her body examined and she was not pregnant at the time of her death. So that couldn't be a possible reason for a hit as well. But back to her funeral.
One of the highest viewing figures ever recorded in the UK. I mean, I remember that as well.
I do too.
And by the way, in the US, it peaked 50 million. So, I mean, this event was huge, and it was broadcast to more than 200 countries. And it's estimated that 2.5 billion people watched it worldwide, which that is huge because there's like 7-8 billion people in the world at the time of her death. So that is some pretty crazy numbers.
It showcases the impact that she had on the world. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier that when she was married, she had almost 1 billion people tune into her and Charles. And then when she passed and had her funeral televised, she, 1.5 times that to 2.5, like you said.
I think that just goes to show that the love for her grew over those 15 years that she was involved in the royal family.
And I think a lot of that is due to, you touched on a little bit ago, her patronages. Her legacy was really tied to not only her ability to bring a levity to the monarchy and the way that she mothered, but it also was very much tied to her community outreach. She worked very closely with the AIDS and HIV community. She was known to, on camera for the first time for anyone, because this is, at the time when people really...
They were scared. They were scared of catching it. They didn't accept that it wasn't contagious via air droplets.
And so she famously in 1987 held hands with an AIDS patient on camera. And then she's quoted as saying, HIV doesn't make people dangerous to know. You can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. What's more, you can share their homes, their workplaces, and their playgrounds and toys. And I think that shows how she was really trying to open up a discourse surrounding what AIDS and HIV was, but also an understanding and a human element to those afflicted with it.
Well, she was setting an example in that moment too. Now, it was very her to shake hands, and that's a very royal family thing. Like they do all kinds of things like that on like Christmas and holidays, and you just go, good God, like I couldn't imagine my holiday being spent doing things like that. But I mean, that's their role. They're quite literally funded by the taxes in the UK or England or whatever. So they owe that to the public. But more than just that's who she was, she knew, she had to have known she was setting a precedent of like, it's okay. Yeah. And in 1987, I cannot even begin to explain how huge that was, because HIV.
That was the height of it.
It was the height of it. There was horrific things being said about it and communities that were being disproportionately affected by it. There was so much misunderstanding, but I'm pretty sure it had really only been like widely publicly known since like, I want to say like 1984. I could be wrong. But yeah, so it was just such a precedent and example that she was setting. She also did amazing work for the homeless community, the unhoused. She did amazing work in Bosnia trying to get rid of landmines. One of the individuals that she really made an impact on even got emotional talking about how now 20 years later, there are no landmines, but she's not here. And he kind of breaks down on camera. And it's just a telling moment, like the impact she had on these people. So definitely you should watch that documentary, Diana, Our Mother and Her Legacy, from 2017. It's amazing.
That's definitely worth everyone giving a watch. Something that I found really interesting too was her estate. Like, where did it go? That's something that I find really interesting when talking about these royals, because they just have so much, and like it's more than anyone, most people can ever imagine. And so like, it left me wondering, where did it all go? Where did her estate go? And so she left her 21 million pound estate to her sons. And, obviously because her sons were underage, they went into the hands of the trustees of the estate, which were her sister and her mom. Majority was inherited by the boys. They each got about 10 million pounds. And then a lot of her jewelry was split amongst her. I guess she had 17 godchildren. So everyone got a little bit of a memento from their godmother.
I want to know where that wedding ring is. I think, doesn't Catherine have it? Does she have it?
Well, yes, I believe it's her engagement ring.
It is beautiful.
I think it's like a 10 karat sapphire with a diamond halo.
Yes, it is. And it is gorgeous. And there's a lot of people out there that kind of wanted to emulate it just throughout time since she had that. I think it's beautiful.
It's stunning. It really is. And I believe it makes sense for Catherine to have it. She is the new Princess of Wales. She's going to be the queen, and that ring will have officially made it onto the throne. So I may be misremembering this, but when I read Harry's memoir a couple years ago, Spare, I believe he does say that Diana had the engagement ring and she left the boys the engagement ring and then also a watch. I believe Harry was the one who initially got the ring, and he gifted it to William when he got engaged to Catherine so that the ring would end up on the throne where his mom was supposed to be. And I feel like what a beautiful moment between brothers, but also like a way to honor their mother.
I have faith that hopefully the two brothers can kind of come back together if they haven't already. They're obviously living very different lives in different countries, all for very different reasons. But I do have faith because at the end of the day, it's kind of them against the world when it comes to Diana and her legacy and where they come from. They only each have one brother. So
I think even Harry captures it perfectly in his memoir where he says, like, no one else besides my brother knows what it's like to walk behind my mom's casket.
And that's right.
And so, yeah, they have each other. And I think that is Diana's legacy. And I hope, like you said, that they're able to reconcile if they are still on the outs with one another.
Come back next week and join us for another episode of Unscripted. Tomorrow, you can catch us with an episode of DocuFiles. This week, we're covering Glitter and Greed, the Lisa Frank story from Amazon Prime or Prime Video. And Thursday, we'll be back with another true crime case that needs your attention.
You can find us on social media at the Murder Diaries Pod, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Stitch Fix. Stop shopping, get styled.
A+ on the outfit, Miss Turner. You are about to slay parent-teacher conferences.
Oh, these? Just the most perfect fitting jeans my stylist sent me.
Oh, hello, you, who didn't set one foot in a mall and still looks amazing.
Just share your size, style, and budget, and your stylist sends personalized looks right to your door. Stitch Fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com. To my stylist.
This look is dedicated to you. Thank you. Thank you.